Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flick Show. My name is Chris Wong. This is going to be more updates for the DCEU and actually Warner Brothers in general, because Warner Brothers holds a lot of properties, including DC, Godzilla vs. Kong, Fantastic Beasts, Harry Potter. Lots of different properties are in the studio, and so I thought these stories are kind of interesting. First one up is Jaume Colette Serra eyed to direct DC's Black Adam starring Dwayne Johnson. This is coming from Variety, so you can take it to the bank that this is true. Jungle Cruise director Jaume Colette Serra and Dwayne Johnson are reuniting for Johnson's first foray into the comic book world. Sources tell Variety that Colette Serra is in negotiations to direct Johnson in the New Line's film Black Adam, based on the DC Comics character. According to insiders, the film is a priority for the studio following the success of Shazam, in addition to the hype surrounding Johnson's first entry into the superhero realm. As for Colette Serra, the Shallows director has been a front-runner for the films ever since his work with Johnson and producers Danny Garcia, Hiram Garcia, and Beale Flynn on Disney's Jungle Cruise. Johnson was very impressed with how Colette Serra handled himself on such a large production and was surprised how seamlessly he was able to transition from darker material to much lighter material with such ease. Once production ended on Jungle Cruise, the decision to name him the director of Black Adam was an easy one to make. Flynn of Flynn Picture Company will produce, along with Johnson, Danny Garcia, and Hiram Garcia of Seven Bucks Production. Scott Sheldon will oversee the Flynn Picture Company, and Adam Stitzkill, I can't even say that, who worked with Johnson and Flynn on Rampage, wrote the latest draft. New Line planned to introduce Johnson as Black Adam in the first Shazam film, but the producing team quickly made the conscious effort to separate the two characters with a Black Adam solo picture. The DC Comics character Shazam, aka Captain Marvel, is the alter ego of a boy named Billy Batson. Batson can transform into a superhero by saying the word Shazam, and Black Adam is Shazam's arch nemesis. Colette Serra is also known for a number of other big hits, including The Shallows, starring Blake Lively, and Nonstop and Unknown, both starring Liam Neeson. And this Jungle Cruise, which also stars Emily Blunt, is set to bow on July 24th, 2020. So, wow. This is a director that I believe was even rumored to tap at Suicide Squad 2 at one point, right? I remember very clearly that this director was almost going to be doing Suicide Squad, so it's interesting. He's still in the Warner Brothers camp and is going to make this Black Adam film, which is a good thing. I mean, it looks like Studio sees, and it is, sees Shazam as being a very successful film because of its small budget. It's able to reap a lot of gross profit out of that, and so they are going to move forward with this Shazam mini universe, Black Adam being the next one up. And so that is pretty fantastic for Warner Brothers and fantastic for DC fans who are looking forward to more of to finally see actually Black Adam. I mean, it's been years, like years, since Dwayne Johnson was cast as Black Adam, and for him to finally make a movie would be quite something. So we don't know when this is actually going to happen. Maybe a few years from now, a couple years from now. But it's finally happening for people who are very interested in the Black Adam character and expanding the Shazam universe. The next one is a whole Warner Brothers things, but it might mean something good for the DCEU or the DC universe. J.J. Abrams' new mega deal. Warner Media and Apple lead the race. Now, this has been talked about before, but there is no decision has been made yet. J.J. Abrams looks to be closing in on a destination for a new mega deal for his production company, Bad Robot, which could be valued at nearly $500 million. Sources tell Variety that Warner Media is emerging as the front runner to land the filmmaker and TV-minded alias in Star Wars The Force Awakens. However, Apple is also said to be in strong contention for a deal that could be historic in scope. So they're all fighting to get this guy, J.J. Abrams into the mix. He has been pretty pivotal in kind of reshaping Star Trek, reinvigorating Star Wars once again, and he's also got that last Star Wars movie coming out later this year. Why is that exciting for J.J. Abrams? Well, he is quite of interesting. He makes some great films, in my opinion, and I like that he does that. And just that the fact that he's able to reinvigorate Star Trek and Star Wars, whatever you think about those, it actually put it out in forefront into the public a little bit more and got this nostalgia back for Star Wars The Force Awakens. And hopefully, the last Star Wars was really good. But he's also done a lot of the great things like Lost and things like that. So I am really excited because what a person like J.J. Abrams can do within the DC universe, I would love to see something. Maybe he could actually do a Superman film, right? He could do some big movies like the Green Lantern Corps, for instance. Something gigantic. And he's really good at tentpole films. And that's something that Warner Brothers needs to do. They need to make more tentpole films. And you're like, Chris, they got tentpole films, right? They've got Godzilla vs. Kong. They've got Pokemon Detective Pikachu. They've got all these different movies. They've got Wonder Woman 1984 coming out. And that's great. But it's just that something happened with Warner Brothers, and it's either their choices in where they're putting these films. They're just not making the money that a tentpole film, a budget, have to make. You see Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is not making that much. It made $298 million worldwide so far on a $170 million budget. And also Detective Pikachu is also not very good in the box office as well. These type of movies, I think, tentpole films, is something Warner Brothers need to really get a handle on. Those are great movies, but for some reason they're not marketing it very well, and they're not doing it very well in that respect, and it's very sad. And to see Warner Brothers go out this way, and I think bringing in people like J.J. Abrams, who is very much very well known in bringing tentpole films out, successful tentpole films out, can really do a lot for Warner Brothers. And you might be saying, yes, a lot of that is also in the marketing as well, but it could bring something to the table here, as it looks like DC is going more into the almost independent realm, into the lower budget realm, with movies like Birds of Prey and The Joker. And you can even call Matt Reeves the Batman, who is going to be a detective noir style, very low budget, smaller film than a giant tentpole film. So Wonder Woman 1984 is probably one of the last so far until we see New Gods, and whether New Gods is going to be a giant tentpole film or a smaller film, we'll soon find out. But Wonder Woman 1984 will probably be the last more bigger tentpole films, unless Aquaman 2 comes out. But it's going to be quite interesting, this shaping of the DC universe. And Warner Brothers, and we're going to talk more about Warner Brothers, because an article came out, and this is from Deadline, and I'm going to read this to you because it's very important for the rest of the DCEU, including Godzilla and the Monsterverse and every other thing that's coming out of Warner Brothers. Is that Warner Brothers bosses Toby Emmerich and Peter Roth is talking about on-studio post-Kevin Tsujihara in streaming era, Disney, Fox, and potential Godzilla vs. Kong move produced by these people. So what's been the big change at Warner Brothers Studios since AT&T took over? We used to have 3 bars, but now we have 5 bars, joked Warner Brothers Studio Chairman Toby Emmerich about the studio's new corporate parent at today's Produced By conference. But in all seriousness, Emmerich, who sat down in a morning discussion with Warner Brothers President and Chief Content Officer TV Peter Roth and Deadline's Pete Hammond, spoke about how the studio is stoked to embrace even further the direct-to-streaming era. That's the big change that's coming, said Emmerich about the studio's forthcoming streaming service. Peter will be making movies for the platform and will be making movies. This is the evolution of television. It all begins with the consumer. If we don't adhere to what the consumer wants, we'll be obsolete, said Roth, talking about how Netflix has changed the game. It was vitally important when AT&T brought us that they leverage that platform, said Roth, who explained that one of the fears about the future is how studios will rely upon their in-house content even more and become more vertically integrated. Continued Emmerich, motion pictures companies will look like direct-to-consumer companies. For major films companies, you'll see movies on our platforms sooner than they hit SVOD and PVOD 5 or 10 years ago. People will always go to the theater, said Emmerich, and there'll be more of an emphasis on tentpole films than ever before. But the kinds of movies that will justify the experience may risks on films they normally wouldn't consider, said Emmerich, and Fox Disney. I'm jealous because they will be the number one producer for their foreseeable future. This is Toby Emmerich saying this. In regards to reviving DC on the film side in the wake of Batman v Superman Justice League, Emmerich said that the trick is putting the IP in the hands of filmmakers' visions, which is the overall creed of Warner Brothers. They're a filmmaker-driven studio. Toby Emmerich said this: great directors are the lifeblood of a studio, but they need great producers, he added. He hinted that Warner Brothers would return with its DC feature slate at San Diego Comic-Con. They're sitting out and sending New Line's It Chapter 2 instead, essentially with 3 DC picks on the horizon: Todd Phillips' R-rated Joker during the first weekend of October, Birds of Prey on February 7th, and Wonder Woman 1984 on June 5th, 2020. They're not ready to pop materials just yet on those movies. As far as franchise fatigue, with Legendary's Godzilla King of the Monsters tanking, Emmerich said that next year's monster movie Godzilla vs. Kong will deliver for fans in the way they were looking for in the latest Godzilla. It might come out later in the year, so we can deliver an A+ movie, said Emmerich. At the top of the session, Roth acknowledged the state of the studio post-CEO Kevin Sujihara's departure after his alleged misconduct scandal with actress Charlotte Kirk. The loss of our CEO was a painful experience and we had to adjust to it, said Roth. I think Toby is one of the best executives. Kim Williams is a thoughtful and smart and wonderful woman, powerful woman, completes the 3 of us. We each oversee a particular discipline in the company. This is an interim set, not the permanent office of CEO. There will be a new CEO. It was critical to calm the waters with a very large agenda ahead of us. Asked about the ATA and WGA war, Emmerich said he believed the two sides' differences sounds hopeful, while Roth acknowledged that this is a very personal fight between the two entities, which we really don't control, before adding, how's that for a duck? And so, anyway, with being said of all that, there's still no new CEO, so that is interesting. Whoever's going to be taking over, I sure hope they know what they're doing, because right now, what it looks like to me when reading this, and there's a lot of things, different factors to this, is that one, it's AT&T. AT&T is all about the networks, the streaming service. They want to attack Disney Plus, right? Everyone wants to go after Netflix. Netflix is doing great. Netflix is doing awesome. And so everybody's trying to get that next Netflix thing. And then we already said that it's going to, the new Warner Media service is going to range about $16 to $17 a month. That's what's being said right now. But it's going to have its own movies and things like that, television shows. That's where they want to go. And that's where the focus is right now for AT&T. And so with that said, I think what they're trying to say is they're being very picky about their tentpole films. And that's why you see movies like Birds of Prey, The Joker, these lower budgets, or Shazam even, lower budgets, but try to make a lot more money. And I believe that's where Toby Emmerich is coming from. Toby Emmerich came from New Line Cinema. He brought on Walter Amada. These people are very good at making horror movies. Horror movies don't have much budget to them, but they can have a higher profitability. And so they're taking that type of plan, making horror movies by using that type of the way they work with that and plopping it into DCEU. And that's why you see the first movies coming out of the Walter Hamada camp is Birds of Prey and The Joker. Right? Aquaman was a huge tentpole film, but that was essentially part of the John Berg, Jeff Johns camp. Wonder Woman 1984, that was also part of the Jeff Johns, John Berg camp. Jeff Johns kind of had a deal with Shazam as well, but ultimately Shazam became more a Peter Safran, Walter Hamada, the whole New Line Cinema group that they're really well known for doing horror. Right? Low budget, high profitability. So that's essentially what I think is saying here, where Toby Emmerich is going to be kind of choosing what type of tentpole films out. In that case, it kind of makes it's kind of sad, because they're really focusing more on trying to get to the streaming service as quickly as possible, which is coming out, what they're saying is later this year. And with that sense, larger tentpole films can get hurt. Now, Legendary's Godzilla Monsterverse was initially created by Thomas Tull, which he's kind of stepped down from that position. But what they wanted to do was tentpole films, right? They're giant tentpole films. They poured a lot of money into it. And I feel like the marketing just didn't go there. I kind of felt like they chose wrong dates for that movie. And for him to say that Godzilla vs. Kong, they're going to, make it come out later in the year, I like that if they were choosing an actual good date, and not being in the middle of many different summer blockbusters. Choose a date in the spring or the fall or the winter. I like that. But the fact that he says it may come it may come out later in the year, so we can deliver an A+ movie. You're almost phrasing that as like saying Godzilla vs. Kong right now to you is not an A+ movie, and that means that you're not accepting the vision of Adam Wingard's movie. It kind of sounds familiar, don't you think? A delay to make something better towards the end of the year. I hope this is not another Justice League situation. I hope this is not another Zack Snyder. They're going to get another director to reshoot Godzilla vs. Kong so it's to their liking. And they're trying to make an A+ movie to what critics want, right? They're not listening to the fans. They're listening to the critics once again. And the box office is showing that your dates and where you're releasing is not effective. And it boggles my mind that Toby Emmerich is still in the studio. I think he's in my opinion, the wrong person to be in the studio. He talks with that whole we're filmmaker driven studio, and then on the other side he's doing something different. Now, do I think that Birds of Prey, The Joker, Wonder Woman 1984 are not filmmaker driven movies? No, I think those may probably be actual filmmaker driven movies. They're not being they're not being driven by corporate stuffs. But because those are smaller tentpole films, they're not even tentpole films. They're kind of smaller movies and they're lower budgets. They're not having that kind of pressure that Warner Brothers have with tentpole films. Patty Jenkins they're leaving her alone because she proved herself that she could do it. Unless that whole, pushing back the date is actually a facade, and they actually really are reshooting that in some sense of the word. We won't know until Wonder Woman 1984 comes out, but there is something to be said about that later on. Matt Reeves, the Batman, we hearing things like they want more action in it, and Matt Reeves doesn't want to have that action. That's kind of the rumor, but they're going to go ahead with it. But it's that even that is being pushed back once again. So there's something there, right? If Toby Emmerichs are saying that great directors are the lifeblood of the studio, put that effort into the directors. Be more proud of the work that you put out, and not crap on Godzilla vs. King of the Monsters right now. You're literally saying that this is not good enough. I'm sorry. We're going to push back Godzilla versus Kong. It's only in the second week. I mean, market it. Actually be proud of the work that your studio does make out, and stop talking about being the trying to have that zeitgeist that you keep talking about, where your two kids are being your judgment on what a good movie is and what a good movie is not. And that was an article that I read before, but I think Toby Emmerich, in all seriousness, should step down. I think when the new CEO comes in, I think that person should take a hard look around him and say what's working, what's not. And clearly, this man here, is not working. He's got properties like Godzilla, he's got properties like Pokemon, he's got properties like DC, and none of them really hit at home, and nobody's going to watch those films for some reason, even though they were very good films. And I think your marketing, the way you're marketing, the way you're not even having a lot of faith in your projects, is a clear sign this guy's got to leave. This guy's got to go. Maybe this is the guy, and we've been hearing forever that Zack Snyder has said there is not many people left in that initial group that was part of the people who butchered Justice League. There's only one man left, and that man is Toby Emmerich. And I believe he's got to go. All right, guys. Well, release of Snyder Cut is still going strong. Project Comic-Con is still happening, regardless of Warner Brothers not being on the panels. Like I said, Project Comic-Con is to continuously to educate people. We're just shy about a little over $1,000 away to the next level. So please continue to support that and keep going to that GoFundMe page to throw in whatever you can. And I'll link the site to again, every time I do, in the description below. So check it out. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.